All right, everybody, welcome. So glad that you are joining us or watching this later. I hope you've had a really good day. It's March, and when I think of March, I think of St. Patrick's Day, rainbows, and so we're going to make this one kind of rainbow themed. But what we're going to do is I'm going to first show you a grouping of pictures. So give me just a second. I'm going to share my screen. I want you just to look at these groups of pictures or this group of pictures here for a second. And I want you to find the picture that's kind of speaking to you right now. Like which picture is resonating with you. And just kind of notice it. Once you've landed on it, just kind of look at it. I want you to notice the colors in the picture. If there's any objects in the picture. Any shapes, what you think it might sound like if you were in that area, that scene right now, what kind of temperature it might be, if there are any smells that go along with your picture. And then lastly, I want you to think about why you picked that picture, why it stuck out to you. And if you want, you can put in the chat, if you're watching this live, you can put in the chat which picture you chose and why you like that picture. And I'll tell you the one that's kind of speaking to me right now is the baseball stadium, because I'm excited that baseball is coming back. I love to watch baseball. When I think about being in that stadium, I think about loud noises, the smell of food. Maybe it's hot outside or it's a cool evening after a really hot day. Maybe feel a little sweaty, maybe tired because it's kind of an ordeal to go to the baseball game. But if you have any thoughts about the one you picked, go ahead and put it in the chat. You can just say, I picked the baseball stadium because I like baseball. You can keep it really simple. And that way we'll know where you're at. So one last moment to notice the pictures if you didn't get a chance to pick one out. We're keeping it really chill today. We're not going to do any yoga or movement. We're just going to stay where we are. I figured we would do very visual stuff today. Lots of pictures, lots of thinking about color. So perfect. I'm going to stop the share right now. Sunset picture, because you love sunsets. Beautiful. I love sunsets too. Nothing beats a good sunset. Am I right? So I'm going to find one more image for us to look at. Give me just a moment. Thank you for your patience. Okay, perfect. So we're going to move on to a rainbow meditation. And I'm going to show a picture of a rainbow for us to look at. I love rainbows. Think about right now, if you've ever seen a rainbow in person, isn't it the most just amazing thing? Like, don't you just get a thrill of excitement when you see it? And of course, what I also like about this picture is it looks like it's in the middle of a storm, like a rainstorm. And that's what happens with rainbows too. Rainbows don't come in the middle of a pretty day. Rainbows come usually right after rain because you need the water and you need the light to make the rainbow and the prism. So I think that's really cool. So we're going to do a little bit of a rainbow meditation. You can close your eyes if you're comfortable, but if you would rather, you're welcome to just kind of look at the rainbow here. Notice each color as we walk through it. I'm going to walk you through the colors of the rainbow, and we're going to just think about each one and explore it with our senses. So first, I want you just to find a comfortable position, maybe seated, resting the back against a chair, or if you're on your bed, just getting really cozy, grounding yourself which means you're noticing where the floor or the bed or the chair is supporting your body. Just notice where you're being held in space right now. What is supporting you? Take a moment now to check in with your breathing. And I'm going to ask you to think about certain colors. I'm going to suggest some examples that go along with each color. Some of these examples you might like, you might find them pleasant. Others you may not like, you might find unpleasant. There is no right or wrong. Mindfulness is not about feeling pleasant all the time. It's about sitting with feelings of pleasant and unpleasant and being okay with that. So just know that if I'm suggesting something that goes along with a color, that it's okay for you to feel pleasant or unpleasant about it. I want us to sit back. If you're looking at the screen or if you're thinking in your mind, I want you to focus on the color red. And just what comes up for you when you think about the color red? Picture that color in your mind. Perhaps you think of roses or fire. What emotion goes with red? What feeling does red give you? What does the color red sound like? What does the color red smell like? What does the color red feel like? I want you to move your attention now to the color orange and sit with it for a moment. What is your initial reaction to the color orange? Now I want you to think of some things that might be orange. Perhaps a sunset or the citrus oranges, mango. What other things are orange? What does orange sound like? What does orange smell like? What does orange feel like? Sit with the color orange for a moment, just imagining that you're just within that color surrounding you. And now I want you to shift your attention to the color yellow. And notice right now what reaction yellow brings to you right now. And let's think of some things that are yellow. Maybe a sunflower or a fresh lemon, little buttercups. What other things are yellow? Maybe a bright yellow chair you could sink down into. What does yellow sound like? What does yellow smell like? What does yellow feel like? And now sit with the color yellow. Maybe it's surrounding you. Maybe you're imagining you're holding the color yellow in your hands, gently, with an open palm. And now I want you to turn your attention to the color green. What is your initial reaction to the color green? Let's think about some things that are green. Grass in a yard, moss on a tree trunk or on a rock, money, crisp dollar bills. What other things are green? What does green sound like? What does green smell like? What does green feel like? And now I want you to again imagine that you're sitting with green, maybe like you're wearing green like a blanket, or perhaps just holding the color green in the palm of your hand. Gently letting it go. I want you now to direct your attention to the color blue. What is your initial reaction to the color blue? What are some things that are blue? The most obvious is the sky, water, the deep blue of the ocean, or the bright blue of a swimming pool. Maybe tiny blue wildflowers. What other things are blue? What does blue sound like? What does blue smell like? What does blue feel like? And now imagining that blue is wrapped around you, or perhaps you're just holding it in your hands. And now letting it go. And I want you to sit with the color indigo, that deep, almost navy color. What is your initial reaction to indigo? What things are indigo colored? Maybe a deep night sky. Or dark denim blue jeans dyed with indigo dye. What other things might be that color? What does indigo sound like? What does indigo smell like? What does indigo feel like? I want you to sit with indigo for just a moment, maybe imagining it wrapped around you like a blanket, or perhaps just holding it gently in the palm of your hand. And now I want you to turn your attention to our last color, violet. What is your initial reaction to violet? What are some things that are the color violet? Maybe a rich purple flower, or the deep purple velvet robe of a king or a queen. What other things are violet? What does violet sound like? What does violet smell like? What does violet feel like? I want you to sit with the color violet, either imagining it wrapped around you like a blanket, or you're just holding it gently in your hand. And now let it go. Now I want you to imagine each of these colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Imagine them all together in a majestic rainbow. What is your initial reaction to a rainbow? What are some things that are multicolored or rainbow in color? What does a rainbow sound like? What does a rainbow smell like? What does a rainbow feel like? Imagine a rainbow maybe wrapped around you like a blanket, or perhaps you're holding a little rainbow in your hand. And now gently let it go. And if your eyes were closed, feel free to flutter them open. Notice again the chair, the furniture, the floor that's supporting you. Notice where your hands are. Notice where your feet are. Notice the sound of my voice as I talk to you through your device. Take a nice deep breath in and let it out. Thank you for doing this color meditation with me. I hope that was interesting and that it was a creative challenge for you. It can seem kind of silly to ask, like, what does orange sound like? But I think those are beautiful creative exercises for our brain. So I think it's very cool. And honestly, guys, there's not a wrong answer. If orange sounds like in sync to you, then great. You don't have to explain it to me. But I do want to know if you had any interesting things that you noticed that came up for you. Go ahead and drop them in the chat. I would love to know if you were like, I thought of this for this color, because those examples, I just wrote those down offhand. And so if you have a better example of something for violet, I would love to know that. And I'll share one thing, because if I ask you guys to share, I want to make sure I'm sharing too. One thing that I noticed that was really interesting is like, what does rainbow smell like? And I was like, I think it smells like sprinkles, because I thought of rainbow sprinkles, and I was like, that's really interesting. And also that seems like it's on brand for a rainbow, for it to smell like sprinkles. So that's same LOL. Yes, that's kind of where I landed, was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess rainbows smell like sprinkles. Why not? And is that wrong? No, it's a creative thought experiment. It's okay if rainbows smell like, muffins to somebody else, or if they smell like your dog. I don't care. Like, it's not for a grade. There's not a right or a wrong. It can smell like whatever it needs to smell like for you. So anyway, I thought that was really fun, kind of interesting, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And if there's a color that you hate, and you're like, it was uncomfortable to sit with it, good, because it's okay to sit with things that are uncomfortable. Obviously, if there's something that I'm asking you to do that's really just not safe for you to do, fine. Like, in your mind, you're like, it's not a safe place for me to go. That's okay. But if you just are sitting with like, ugh, I don't like orange, it's unpleasant for me, then that's okay. Sit with that sensation. Sit with the knowledge that orange doesn't feel good to you, and maybe explore why with curiosity. Like, why do I not like the color orange? Which, that's a legitimate example. I don't like the color orange. I have nothing against it. There's no personal connection other than I just think it's a really bright color, and I'm not drawn to it because I like what I like. I love cool tones, purples, blues, greens. Brighter colors are not my favorite, and that's just who I am. I don't really have a good reason for it. So maybe you noticed that. But of course, when I'm doing the meditation, I'm sitting with orange, being like, yeah, I don't really like orange. I'm ready to give it back. Here it is in my palm of my hand. I'm ready to hand it over, but it's cool, and orange has a purpose, and I'm okay with orange being in the world. I'm not going to paint my walls with it, right? So, and that's all right. You can learn something about yourself too. So any final thoughts? Again, you can drop them in the chat before we sign off here. And if you're watching the video, I'm going to stop the recording now. Thanks for hanging out with me.